It is Tuesday night. It is quite late. I went straight from work right into one of my weekly D&D games, and we've only just wrapped up. It's just gone 10 o'clock, so this is going to be a fairly short one, I think. We'll see how long we actually go once I get into nerding out about character sheets, which we'll get to in a minute. Today was a pretty tiring day. I was up very late last night. I was tormented by muses, as I tend to say. I saw 5 p.m. come around, which means I think I got maybe like 4 hours sleep in total. But the primary reason was I was just bombarded with creative ideas well into the night. So I ended up spending about 6 hours, I guess, sitting in the dark, in bed, staring at the ceiling, just thinking, and having all these ideas that got me really, really excited to work on different things. So, I mean, if I have to spend 6 hours staring at the ceiling in the dark, at least it's nice when I can get something good out of it, so I can't complain too much. But it did mean I was pretty tired today. The primary thing I ended up getting up to was largely editing some more freelancing work that's come through, getting that ready to go into Ways and Means, which was a little bit boring, and because I was so tired, I didn't think to film any of it, so I don't actually have any fun B-roll. But as consolation prize, I thought I would show off something fun that I did actually over the weekend, which was part of the preparation that I'm doing to be a player in a new Spire group that's starting up in my local area. And I very quickly realized that I wanted to make a new character sheet for Spire. Let me show you what I mean. So here's Spire. Wonderful book. So we can see at the back of the book here we have the character sheet. It is quite simple and it's quite old at this point, and it's just very simple sort of boxes. It does what it needs to do. It holds all your character information on one sheet. But the issue I came up with is nowadays I hold all of my character sheets in this nice little A5 just ring binder. All of my bits and pieces go in here. So I needed to redesign the character sheet so that it would go from an A4 full page into something that's half the size and folded over a spread. So this is what I came up with. A nice wee redesign. I just very quickly bunged it together, reorganized a bunch of the information, and voila, a nice new character sheet. And I thought it might be fun just to take a wee moment and talk about my general philosophy around designing and redesigning character sheets, because this is a good little example. So let me bring these both up side by side. Alright, so let's just look at these side by side. We have the old character sheet on the right here, and my new one on the left here, my A5 folded one. So whenever I think about designing a character sheet, the primary thing I try to think of it as is, imagine that I am building like a tool rack, like you would have in a shed or whatever. Everything that's on your character sheet is essentially a tool that the player is going to reach for at different points during the game, whether it is a number that they have to reference, or a bit of character information that they have to reference, or a way of tracking a resource. They're all just different tools that should be reached for, and within like a split second you should be able to walk up to this character sheet and just like it's a tool wall go, well, I know that my screws are up here and I take this, or my stuff's down here and I grab this. So like designing a tool wall, it's thinking about everything in groups. Okay, for example, top left is normally quite common, is going to be like role-playing stuff. So I've got our name, class, and endurance, which are all general, who is this character, what are they doing, same as we sort of have up here. I removed player name just because I don't often hand my character sheets away, and if I'm a GM I can tell whose characters are whose by their character name, so I don't tend to find much use for player name, so I just nixed it, chucked it away, whatever. So the next thing I was looking at, primary mechanic for Spire is the resistance system, which for those who don't know is essentially your different stats have their own sort of HP value. And as you accrue points of stress, every time you do, you roll a die. If you roll equal to or under the amount of stress you have, it transfers into a fallout, which is like a permanent or short-term narrative debuff. So that's kind of like the system that you have. It's this, you need to be able to track your resistances, you need to be able to track how many slots you have, how many are full, and attached to that you need to track your fallouts, and you also need to track your refresh, which is narrative action you take that will recover and clear some of your stress. So we have resistances, we have our freely slots, we have our current stress, and then we have fallouts. But then one of the things I noticed with this old character sheet is your refresh is all the way up here. This tool is so far away from where it's used because your refresh is how you recover resistances. If I'm a player, I'm looking for these pieces of information in the wrong places. Also, I tend to find when I'm playing Spire, resistances are the things that I want to track and I want to be reminded of and are referenced the most. So having them down at the bottom here, I thought was just like not great information flow. So if we move over to my version, you can see I took all of this stuff that was scattered around the sheet and I combined it all here. So we have all of our resistances, and then we have stress check markers to track rather than sort of a blank space here. We have nice check marks that can go all the way up to 10 because you can't have any more than 10. And then a nice little column here, which is protection, which are the free slots. So the protection is here for each of the different resistances. And then I took refresh and I slammed it right next to this here. So all of this section here is now gaining, resisting, and clearing stress all at once. And then, if any of your stress turns into fallout, it bleeds down here and you get this nice big box here to write all of your fun narrative fallout and keep track of it, you know? So it takes this little bit here and this bit here on the old one, pulls it all up right at the top left, right where it's going to get used the most in this sort of like section up here. The next aspect that I wanted to change was skills and domains and how they interact with knacks. So the way skills and domains work is kind of like in a lot of other games. You have like proficiency with one of your skills or domains. You know, you're good at compelling or deceiving and all this sort of jazz. You fill these in as you unlock them. And then if you get proficiency in a skill twice, like if you're really, really good at fighting, the first time you unlock fight, you would fill it in, you would get an extra d10 when you're making fight checks. If you get a second fight proficiency, you unlock a knack for it, which has to be a specific narrative thing. So you're well trained in fighting and you have a knack for close quarters fighting or for dueling or whatever. So these knacks become sort of narrative extra steps, it's how you're doing the thing. So as we can see, we have this kind of disconnect here again of information where the skills are all along here. But each of these skills and domains could have their own knacks. And you just have this one box here which is kind of disconnected. You're going to have to find a way to say, oh, I have a knack in sneak or steal. So and write it in this little box here. So what I wanted to do with the new one, when I brought this over here, was split them into two columns. So we have all our skills along here, and then a nice little section next to each of them where you can write your knacks. So they're immediately, instantly connected. Very easy to see and reference. You can see the checkboxes have remained, so you can fill it in the first time, and then if you get that skill again or that domain again, you can add your knack right there. So all of that information again is just nice, easy to grab. It's all contained together, rather than being sort of disconnected, And those were what I felt were like my primary issues with the old character sheet. Once I resolved those, the rest kind of fell into place quite nicely. We have this big, massive section in the middle of the old sheet, which is for abilities, and your characters do end up with a lot of different abilities in Spire. But one of the things I didn't like about this was that it is just a big open space, quite difficult to sort of, you're going to have to draw in your own lines and sort of segment it as you like. So when I was doing this one here, I just took one of these boxes that has lots of different sections, so I can quite easily sort of segment these. So as a player, for example, if I have 2 or 3 specific abilities that are very fighty, I could put them in a square here and say, well, these are all my fighty abilities, or these are my social abilities, these are my magical abilities. It's just It's still one big ability section, but it's just easier to divide than this big, massive thing in the center here. And again, abilities are the things that I'm going to go to the most, so I wanted to put them smack bang up the top here, top right, because they're like the entry point for what I want to do most of the time. I'm going to look to my abilities, and then my ability is going to say, roll occult low society, and I'm going to, okay, and I flow down here, occult low society, etc. So it's that information flow. That's what I'm looking at. And then equipment, again, just a nice big chunky box here, and bonds are sort of like important NPCs to you and the likes. So again, I just sort of tried to take this one quite narrow box and make them a bit more square and then segregate them again. I really don't tend to like long list boxes like this for things that you have to write as a player. They can work for like skills, but it's just really annoying when you can only get like 3 or 4 words per row. So I tend to prefer a wider horizontal box to a tall, narrow one. And yeah, that was kind of the process of redesigning this. It was really just moving things around, trying to group different aspects of the sheet together better, and just make the information flow a little better. And one of the interesting things about doing this is you can see there are blank spaces. There is an inefficient use of space on the sheet. The first one technically is a better use of the space. Everything is very nice and square and balanced. It is a very sort of precise sheet, I would say, but part of that feels like there's been some problem solving. Like, I think that's how we've ended up with this long, tall bonds box. I would prefer always a sheet that's a little bit less efficient space-wise, but easier to grok, easier to look at. It's your tool wall, you know? It's easier to immediately go here and go here, you know? Like, I have a feeling that's how we ended up with the refresh box up here, was just problem solving, trying to get boxes that fit and measured and all this sort of stuff. So anyway, that's that. I can talk a lot more about character sheet design and information layout, and that also bleeds into GM screen design, which is one of my passion points, something I absolutely love as GM screens. But as I mentioned, I'm running on like 4 hours sleep, and it is currently 10 o'clock, so I am gonna leave that there for now to spark the conversations. Give me a shout in the comments if you want to talk more about character sheets or GM screens and how to lay out information effectively. And point to any of like your favorite character sheets as well. There's a bunch I know that I love. I'm a huge fan of the old Numenera character sheet because of how detailed and crazy it looks. I can think that off the top of my head, but there's been so many interesting and terrible character sheets over the years that I love looking at. So you can often learn more from seeing a bad character sheet than you can from a good one, because when you try to use it, you'll start to feel the gears grinding, you know? And you can sort of say, okay, cool, this is not working, and this is why, because I'm having to jump here and here over the sheet. And you can start to see how information can get laid out better. So anyway, yeah, give me your most beloved and most despised character sheet takes in the comments, and I shall see you tomorrow. Bye for now.